Bro, I need you to stop what you're doing right now. Put the phone down. Close the tab. Whatever you were about to text her, don't send it yet. Because what I'm about to tell you in the next few minutes, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable. It might even make you a little angry. But I promise you, if you actually listen, it's going to change the way you move for the rest of your life. You've been doing it wrong. Not because you're a bad guy. Not because you're weak. But because nobody ever sat you down and told you the truth. You think if you say the right things, show up at the right time, be funny enough, be thoughtful enough, be available enough, she'll finally see it. She'll finally choose you. But here's the cold, brutal reality that nobody wants to say out loud. The harder you try to impress her, the faster she loses interest in you. I know. That stings. Sit with it. Because the version of you that's performing, auditioning, and shrinking himself to fit into her preference, that version of you is bleeding out, slowly, in front of someone who didn't even ask you to. And today we're going to fix that, for real. Not surface level, not some quick tip that lasts 3 days. We're going deep into the root of this thing. And we're not coming up until you're different. Let's go. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is not a place for comfort. This is a place for truth. And the truth is that most men walking around today are operating from a framework that is silently destroying their confidence, their relationships, and their sense of self. And they don't even realize it. They've been conditioned by society, by movies, by their own childhood to believe that love is something you earn. That attraction is something you perform your way into. And it doesn't work. It has never worked. And it will never work. Today's video is going to break that conditioning, layer by layer. We're going to talk about where this behavior comes from, what it's actually costing you, what the alternative looks like, and most importantly, how to install that alternative into your nervous system so it becomes who you are by default. This is a long one. Stay with me the whole way through, because the part that changes your life might be at the end. And hey, if you're the kind of man who wants truth on repeat, not just once, subscribe right now. Hit that bell, because this channel drops content that most men need, but very few are brave enough to actually consume. All right, let's build this thing from the ground up. Let me ask you something honest. When you're around a woman you're attracted to, who are you competing with? Other guys? Her ex? The dude she mentioned once in a conversation? No. You are competing with your own neediness. And right now, for most of you watching this, the neediness is winning. It shows up in small ways that you've convinced yourself are just being nice. You respond to her texts within seconds, every time. You rearrange your schedule around her availability. You agree with things you don't actually agree with. You laugh at things that weren't that funny. You hold back your real opinion because you don't want to create tension. You tell yourself, I'm just being considerate. I'm just showing her I care. I'm just being a good guy. But that's not what she's receiving. What she's receiving is a man who doesn't trust himself enough to just be himself. A man who is so desperate for her approval that he's edited out everything real about him and replaced it with a performance. And here's the brutal part. You can't fake your way past this. Women, specifically healthy, self-aware women, have an almost primal ability to detect the energy of a man who is seeking approval. They might not say it in those exact words, but they feel it. They feel the tension in how fast you respond. They feel the inauthenticity in how hard you laugh. They feel the anxiety in how much you explain yourself. They feel the desperation in how available you are. And once they feel that, the attraction doesn't just slow down, it dies. Not because she's cruel, not because she's playing games, but because attraction, real attraction, cannot survive in the presence of neediness. It's like oxygen and fire. One of them has to go. And what most men do, they double down. They think, I just need to try harder. I just need to show her more. I just need to be more available, more attentive, more everything. And the spiral continues. So let's stop the spiral here, right now, in this video. You can't fix behavior you don't understand. So let's go to the root. Why do you do this? Not the surface, the root. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're a pushover by nature. It's because at some point in your life, probably early, you learned something dangerous. Love is conditional, and the condition is performance. Maybe you had to be the good kid to get noticed at home. Maybe you had to be useful to feel appreciated. Maybe the only time you got real attention was when you did something right, achieved something, or kept everyone happy. So you adapted. You became the nice one, the agreeable one, the helpful one, the one who never caused problems, because that felt safer than being yourself and risking rejection. And now, you're 20-something, 30-something, maybe older, and you're still running that same program. You use her attention as proof that you're okay. When she's warm, you feel confident. When she's cold, you spiral. When she's flirty, you come alive. When she goes quiet for a day, you're in your head running a full internal investigation. You see it now? Her mood has become your emotional weather. Her reply speed determines your peace of mind. Her interest level determines your self-worth. And that is a catastrophically dangerous place to be, because you've handed someone else the remote control to your entire inner world. And here's what it costs you. Not just with her, in your life. It costs you your presence, because you can't be fully present anywhere when your mind is always monitoring her signals like a surveillance system. It costs you your edge, because the man who is constantly performing is never truly resting in who he is. It costs you your masculinity, not the loud chest-puffing version, the grounded kind, the kind that doesn't beg, the kind that doesn't bargain for attention, the kind that doesn't panic when silence happens. And most painfully, it costs you yourself. Because bit by bit, you've traded pieces of your authenticity for approval. And one day you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize who's looking back. Pause. If you've made it this far and you're feeling this in your chest, subscribe right now. Seriously, don't skip this, because the kind of content we're building here, it's not trending, it's not going viral on the Explore page. It finds the right men at the right time. And if this is your right time, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because you're going to want to come back to this channel every single week. All right, let's keep going, because we're just getting to the good part. So if impressing her doesn't work, what does? Let me paint you a picture. There's a type of man. You've probably seen him in real life. Maybe you've even been low-key frustrated by him because things seem to come easy to him. He's not the loudest guy in the room. He's not doing the most. He's not cracking jokes every 30 seconds trying to keep the energy alive. He's just there, fully, solidly, calmly. His posture says something before he even opens his mouth. His eyes are steady, not scanning for validation, just present. He speaks with intention, not volume. He doesn't overtalk. He doesn't fill every silence with nervous energy. He flirts, but he doesn't fawn. He gives, but he doesn't bleed. He leads, but he doesn't chase. He listens, but he doesn't lose himself. He desires her, but he doesn't worship her. And here's what makes him completely different from 90% of men out there. His boundaries don't need a speech. He doesn't sit her down and say, "Hey, I need you to know that I won't tolerate disrespect." He doesn't send a long text explaining his values. He simply doesn't stay where disrespect lives. He doesn't argue for basic decency. He doesn't negotiate for consistency. He doesn't accept hot and cold behavior and call it chemistry. He doesn't accept confusion and call it, "She's just complicated." He names it for what it is: immaturity, inconsistency, a waste of his time. And he moves accordingly, because he has something that most men are missing: a mission. And purpose, real, consuming, burning purpose, is the antidote to neediness. Think about it. When you don't have direction in your life, what happens? You turn her into your direction. When your days are empty, her attention becomes your entertainment. When you have no discipline, her validation becomes your dopamine, and you start making rookie mistakes. You confuse anxiety for chemistry. You think the uncertainty is exciting. You think the constant back and forth is passion. Bro, that's not romance. That's not connection. That's intermittent reinforcement. That's addiction, a little reward, a lot of uncertainty. And your brain starts gambling, just like a slot machine. You keep pulling the lever. You keep sending the text. You keep trying one more time because maybe this time she'll give you what you need. And you call it love. You call it patience. You call it being a good man. But it's fear, dressed up in a nice outfit, calling itself something noble. Okay, let's get brutally practical. Because inspiration without instruction is just noise. I'm not here to hype you up and send you home feeling good for 48 hours. I want to actually change how you operate. So here's what you stop. Right now, stop performing availability. Your time is not a love language. Your time is a resource. One of the most finite, non-renewable resources you have. And when you make yourself infinitely available to someone who hasn't earned that, you're not being loving. You're being cheap, and cheap things don't get valued. Stop sending novels when she sends emojis. You know what that is? That's you chasing certainty. That's you trying to force a connection that isn't flowing naturally. You're not communicating. You're begging for a reply with extra steps. Stop laughing off disrespect. I know it feels easier in the moment. I know you don't want to make it weird, but every time you smile and say it's fine when it isn't fine, you're doing two things. You're training her that you'll tolerate it, and you're training yourself that you don't deserve better. Both of those are dangerous. Stop making jokes to soften your standards. Your standards are not negotiable. They're not a punchline. They're the architecture of your self-respect. Treat them like it. Stop explaining your worth. A man with real self-respect doesn't convince, he demonstrates. The second you start building a case for why you're a good guy, you've already lost. Because men who are genuinely high value don't need to argue it. Now, redirect. Redirect all of that energy that you've been pouring into her, into yourself. Train your body. Not because it'll make her want you, because it makes you stronger, more disciplined, more grounded. Your body is your armor and your responsibility. Build your skills. Whatever your craft is, go deeper. Because the man who is genuinely excellent at something carries himself differently. He doesn't need external validation because he has internal evidence. Fix your finances. I don't care where you're starting from. Make a plan. Work it. Because financial instability creates emotional instability, and emotional instability makes you needy. Connect those dots. Strengthen your circle. Build friendships with men who challenge you, not just comfort you. Because the man who has a strong brotherhood doesn't need a woman to fill that void. And that energy, that fullness, is magnetic. Get your sleep right, get your diet right, get your mind right. Because when your fundamentals are dialed in, you carry yourself differently, you think more clearly, you react less, you choose more. And here's the thing about the man who is genuinely busy building his life. He doesn't have time to chase women who are confused about him. He doesn't have the bandwidth to decode mixed signals. He doesn't have the energy to compete for attention. Not because he's arrogant, not because he thinks he's better than anyone, but because he is committed to himself. And commitment is the most attractive energy on the planet. I need to talk about something that most men won't admit they do, because it's embarrassing when you see it clearly. You meet her. She's attractive. She's got that energy, that thing, and something in you lights up. And immediately, before you even really know her, your mind starts building a movie. You start imagining future conversations, future moments, future her choosing you, and you start adjusting your entire behavior based on a person who doesn't fully exist yet, based on a projection. That's called future tripping. And it makes you weak in ways you don't even notice, because now you're not evaluating a real person. You're protecting an illusion. You've given someone a crown before they've earned a seat at your table. So you stop asking the important questions. You stop asking, is she actually good for me? You stop asking, does she respect my time? You stop asking, is she consistent or is she just interesting when she wants something? You stop asking, does being around her make me better or just more anxious? You stop evaluating, you start auditioning. And when you audition, you teach her something dangerous about your value. You teach her that your attention is available at a discount. You teach her that your standards are flexible depending on how attracted you are. You teach her that if she just gives you enough, just enough to keep you hopeful, you'll keep showing up. And some women, not all, but some, will take that deal. Consciously or not, they'll keep you on the warm bench. Not quite in, not quite out. Just enough contact to keep you engaged. Just enough interest to keep you invested. And you'll call it a situationship, or complicated, or we're still figuring it out. But what it really is you not having the self-respect to demand clarity. Here's the standard, clarity or exit. If you like her, say it. Clean, direct, no games, no pressure, no theater, just honest. And then watch what she does, not what she says in the moment, what she does consistently over time with no one watching. That's your answer. And you have to be willing to accept it, even when it's not the one you wanted. Now let's talk about the thing that keeps you trapped even when you intellectually understand everything I've said. The fear. The fear that if you stop performing, if you actually show up as a full, boundaried, self-respecting man, she'll leave. And you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. Some women will. The ones who only liked you because you were easy to control. The ones who were comfortable with you because you never challenged them, never required anything, never pushed back. Those women will leave when you stop auditioning. And that is the best thing that can happen to you. Because if the only way to keep a woman interested is to abandon yourself, that's not a relationship. That's a hostage situation. And hostages don't thrive. They survive. And self-betrayal. The slow, quiet kind where you tolerate what you shouldn't and accept what you don't deserve, always collects interest. It shows up as resentment, the low-grade bitterness that starts bleeding into how you treat her, how you see yourself, how you show up everywhere. It shows up as anxiety, the constant low hum of, is she okay with me? Did I say too much? Was that too intense? Should I have waited longer to respond? It shows up as jealousy. Because when you're not secure in yourself, every other man becomes a threat. It shows up as depression, because somewhere deep down, you know you're not living in alignment with who you actually are. And eventually, it shows up as you waking up one day next to someone, or alone, and realizing you gave years of your life to maintaining an image instead of building a self. You do not need that. You deserve better than that. Write this down, somewhere. Screenshot it. Whatever you need to do. The man who fears loss will always be controlled by it. If you're terrified she'll leave, you will tolerate everything. Disrespect, inconsistency, being hidden, being an option, being almost done, but never quite chosen. You'll shrink into a supporting role in your own story, and you'll call it love, because the truth that she's not the right one, that you've been performing for someone who doesn't fully see you, that truth hurts too much to sit with. So you keep going, hoping that one more gesture, one more conversation, one more perfectly crafted text will finally tip the scale. It won't. But here's the other side of this. If she is the right woman, if she's healthy, self-aware, emotionally secure, your self-respect will not push her away. It will pull her closer. Because healthy feminine energy is naturally drawn to structure, to leadership, to a man who is calm, grounded, and clear, not because he's performing those things, but because that's genuinely who he is. A healthy woman doesn't want to be your therapist. She doesn't want to be your judge. She doesn't want to be the reason you feel okay about yourself. She wants to feel you standing on your own 2 feet and choosing her from strength, not from desperation. That's what makes love sustainable. That's what makes it real. So how do you actually become this man? Not just understand him, but become him. It starts with one decision made over and over again, every day. The decision to choose yourself first. Not selfishly, not arrogantly, but consistently. Every time you feel the urge to over-explain, you don't. You trust that your actions already speak. Every time you feel the urge to chase a reply, you don't. You redirect that energy into something that builds you. Every time you feel the pull to shrink your standard to avoid conflict, you don't. You hold the line calmly, without drama, but firmly. And over time, those small decisions stack. They compound, and they become you, the man who has standards without apology, the man who desires without desperation, the man who is present without being performative. And here's what nobody talks about. When you become that man, the dynamic with every woman in your life shifts, not because you've learned manipulation, not because you've become cold or arrogant, but because you've become real, solid, trustworthy in the deepest sense, not just to others, but to yourself. And that is the foundation of everything. So here's where I'm going to leave you. The next time you feel the urge to impress her, a pause. Don't act on it yet. Don't send the text. Don't make the gesture. Don't laugh off the thing that bothered you. Just pause and ask yourself one question. Am I doing this from strength or from fear? If it's fear, don't do it. Let the discomfort sit. Let it build you instead of controlling you. Because the goal here isn't to become cold. It isn't to become distant. It isn't to play games or pretend you don't care. The goal is to become so grounded in who you are, so clear on your values, so committed to your mission, so secure in your own worth, that the right woman feels safe near you. Safe to be real, safe to be vulnerable, safe to actually connect. And the wrong woman, she can't get comfortable using you because there's nothing to exploit in a man who knows himself. That's the shift. From impressing to embodying. From chasing to choosing. From proving to living. You are not a performance. You have never been a performance. You are a person with depth, with value, with a story worth living. Start acting like it. If this video hit you today, share it. Text it to a friend, post it, because there's a man in your circle right now who is losing himself for someone who doesn't see him. And he needs to hear this. Subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what's the one thing from this video that hit hardest? I read every single one, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay grounded, stay real, stay you, because the strongest version of you doesn't beg, doesn't perform, doesn't shrink. He builds, he stands, and he chooses himself first. Peace.